Welcome to this recording from the 2017 Going Beyond Revenue Summit. It is with my mentor, David Neagle. And I was super excited to have David on the summit. It was my big ask. And of course, he has been an integral part of shifting my awareness and my mindset around this issue. It's an interesting journey that I've been on with him for the last 5 years, and I can still think back of where I started and where I'm at today. It's just an entirely different world. We do end up talking about his embezzlement and what he learned from it, and we spend a lot of time talking to him about contracts and the importance of having an attorney do it and how he now uses his team to help with that process. But the key thing I think I'd like you guys to take away from this interview and why I chose it for replay is the conversation around planning for profit. A lot of the time when I talk to businesses, it is simply about planning to break even, planning to have just enough. We don't talk about savings accounts or anything unless you're in the profit first world or have read the book. David didn't. David has done this for a long time. And his concept about just planning it from the start and focusing on it and creating a habit around it, I think is super interesting, because for us to be successful businesses, to have long-term growth, to have a legacy, our mindsets need to shift to that area. And how can you do that better? So I love this interview with David. That's why I picked it for a replay. So enjoy. Thank you.
So let's jump into the interview here. My conversation with most clients is that they hit some type of rock bottom moment, and for some businesses it can close a business, but other businesses it changes their direction, their flow. So I'm wondering, what type of rock bottom moment did you have in your business? And then what did you do about it? Because that's the main thing, is we hit it, but it's about what we do with that or how we change it to move the business forward. That's the most important part. So what was yours?
Well, so there's been several rock bottom moments, but the rock bottom moment that I hit in the business happened 4 years into the business, and I was doing relatively well. Had partnered with some people to do various different projects, and one of the people that we partnered with embezzled $5 million.
Wow!
And and it was one of those things where you didn't see it coming. Nobody knew that obviously this was going to happen. But there was also part of that embezzlement was a little teeny clause in the contract that basically allowed the partners to own the marketing lists that we had developed. So we had merged lists when we got together, and I had spent 4+ years building my list. So that's your kind of your bread and butter. If you have nobody to market to, these are people that you cultivated over 4 years. Not only is $5 million gone, but the list in which you can get it back is gone. So I literally had to start over from scratch from the perspective of, I was living a lifestyle that money was paying for. I owed taxes that had to be paid on that money. Everything, the things that were the commitments that I had in the business for hotels and conventions and all that stuff involved that money, and it was gone. So now I had to start over from nothing. And the first week that this happened, I was in a bit of a tailspin. I mean, it really messes with your head. It messed with my head. And I went and talked to an attorney, and the attorney said to me, "Yep, absolutely. Everything you're telling me is completely accurate. They took the money." He said, "What's worse is they've already spent the money," which what I did not know is that they were deeply in debt themselves, and they had spent the money on that debt. And he said, "So you're right, and it'll cost you about $250,000 and 2 years in court in order to get a judge to say you're right, and you'll never see another dime of that money again. He said, so the question I have for you is, you already know how to do this, obviously. You spent 4 years building your business. Do you want to spend 2 years in stress and anxiety and blaming and being vindictive, or do you want to let this go, learn from it, and rebuild and go out there and do it again? And what was interesting about this, Connie, was that the attorney looked across the table to me and he said, I don't know why I'm actually saying this to you. Now, this was an attorney I didn't know. He was not my current attorney, like my contract attorney. This was somebody else that was recommended that I go talk to about this situation. And he said, I don't know why I'm saying this to you. He said, because I'm an attorney. I make money, taking the case. He said, and it's a winnable case. He said, you're just not going to see any money out of it. He said, most likely. He said, but I really feel that the right direction for you is to just go out and start over. And I sat there for a minute and I got really quiet and I thought to myself, he's right. He's really right. I'm going to let this go and I'm going to focus all of my energy on doing this over again and not making the mistakes that I made that led up to this. And the mistake that led up to it was, I'm all about teaching abundance and prosperity to people. And admittedly, in a weak moment that I had, when the contract came across my desk to go into business with these folks, I said to myself, it was a 2-page contract. It was not that in depth. And I said, I don't need to pay an attorney to read this. I'm smart enough. I could read it myself. And here's what I learned out of this. Yeah, I was smart enough. I understood everything that was in the contract. However, because I wanted to be in business with them, I overlooked the part that said that if something goes wrong, they get to keep the list. And instead of saying this is unacceptable in this contract, I just completely overlooked it, didn't see it, blanked it out, whatever you want to call it. And an attorney would have called that to my attention. And he would have said, this puts you in a vulnerable position. So I learned that the few $100s or $1,000 it would have cost me to have the attorney review that contract was one of the worst mistakes, but also one of the best mistakes that I ever made. So then I sought advice. I went out and I talked with Tony Robbins because I knew that he had an embezzlement. And he actually had a couple in his business, and he gave me some advice. And I talked to a few other people that I knew that gave me some advice on turning it around really quick. And I turned the entire thing around in 12 months, and it made me a much better business owner from that day forward.
Oh, it's such a great story, David, because I was writing over here. There were practical things from that and some mindset shifts that I wrote down. I think the main thing was that one was having clear eyes, how an attorney or a coach can give you that clear vision for what you're looking at, because we can get emotionally. I had a contract as well with a client that I was just doing, and there's some emotional ties when you're doing a contract, and I could read over some things, but when an attorney came in and read through it, it's amazing what they see. And so it's helpful to have those clear eyes on your team, whether it's hard when they're pointing out those to you when you've written the contract, but it's helpful because it was a learning experience for me too. But that's so interesting. Wow. So after all of that, you rebuilt the business and did the same thing, right? Because it was they were both personal development businesses, right?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, a lot of clients, businesses I talk to, mostly it's around whether they want to do coaching or they want to hire a bookkeeper. They've had a bad experience, one or the other, or they felt that they've had a failure, that the investment they made didn't pan out as well as they thought of. So this question is more around that, but I know you're probably not going to think of it as a money failure, which a lot of our speakers on the event are coming back to me saying it's more about just a learning experience. But did you have one in your business where you didn't quite see, and how did you work yourself out of it when it came up? So some type of investment that you weren't expecting.
Well, I think that's probably happened many times in the business where, especially around contracting. So I'm in a business where you do a lot of speaking, you sign a lot of contracts with a lot of other people, and these contracts are generally based on where they are and what they need in order to do their events, right? So when you're a professional speaker, those contracts can get quite detailed as far as what they want you to do and what they don't want you to do. What I found was surprising, and it still surprises me to this day, is that there's many people out there that will try to change the contract mid-delivery. And, I've had situations where sign a contract, go in, speak, and then my CEO would be with me, or my COO would be with me, and they would literally be trying to renegotiate the contract while I'm on stage.
Wow.
Which is very, it's completely unethical and, beyond, there's a million things I could say about that. But I think that the thing is that a contract, is basically an agreement between two people. It should come out to be something that is a win-win for both people. I think that an attorney a person should have an attorney on staff or that they hire so that everything is being gone over, and that if something does happen where a person ends up losing because of a wrong contract, a bad contract, a mistake that they made, everything, I believe this, everything in business that goes wrong is designed to move you to the next level. But if you look at it from a victim perspective and you don't take responsibility for it, then you'll never learn the lessons that you have to learn to go to the next level. When I first started in business, I knew very little. I mean, really very little. I jumped in with both feet, not knowing what I was doing, and really understanding that I was going to be building the ship as I was going. Mm-hmm. So it required 100% dedication on my part to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, plus do the activities every day that kept money coming into the business that would allow me to keep building it and moving forward. Now, it just so happens that I love to do those things on top of the delivery and the speaking and the authoring and the teaching and the coaching and all those things that go with the business, because I love people and that's why I got into business. But I really think that the real key is that if a person can accept personal responsibility without judging themselves, it can be one of the most enlightening, rewarding mindset and practical things that they can do in their life to move them forward, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, that is a great learning op there for everybody. That is one of the biggest mindset shifts I've seen. And now as my business has grown, I noticed too that when I first started out, I worked with a lot of people that were in victim mode. I had a lot of people around me too that were in constant victim mode. I have far less now that I'm aware of it and how it affects me. So besides, let's go back to the contract to ask, so having an attorney on staff, so that probably requires having conversations about more lead time on getting contracts done. Is that what happens now? Or they go pretty fast? So allowing enough lead time. And then do you review it with your attorney, or once the attorney's reviewed it, you're good to go once he says it's good to sign?
So generally the way that it happens is the contract will come over. Now there's various different aspects to my business. So there's more than just me that's involved in this at this point. Right. There are probably 4 people that are a part of my staff, part of my team, that review contracts based on the specific job that they hold with me. Okay. And whatever it is that we're doing contractually. So they'll get the contract. They'll go over that contract. They'll make notes and ask for questions. It will then go in front of the attorney. The attorney will look at the contract, answer those questions. If all the questions are answered, then the contracts are signed. So it's to the point where there's a lot of contracts that get signed right now that I don't actually even see. Like, for instance, I have a full-time event coordinator, and I don't see any of the contracts that she's in charge of. But that wasn't like that for the first, I don't know, year or so that she worked with me. We reviewed those contracts, together all the time. Or her and my CEO did, I should say, actually. But now she understands what it is that we're looking for, what's acceptable, what's not. And she's completely empowered to be able to do that on her own with the attorney.
Yeah.
So, if it's a business, if it's a, let's say it's a, we are doing a business contract where we're doing a joint venture with someone, and it directly involves me and what I want to do with that, then of course the contract is going to come in front of me. And then I'll look at it. The attorney will look at it. It'll, questions will go back and forth. And then once if any negotiation needs to happen, that'll also take place. Then once that's settled, the contracts are signed and we move forward.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time on that. I haven't had a speaker yet really bring that up as a topic. So I just wanted to dive in a little bit more to get some takeaways for our listeners on it in case they haven't done contracts before. Just as an example, I loved the part about empowering your team that they can take forward action on it now, and that you have specific people to look at it. I think in accounting, I've always thought it's important to have more than one set of eyes on something, for that clarity. So that was a great takeaway. Awesome. Okay, so now as I've been expanding in this new brand the last couple of years, when I first started, I didn't realize that people had a different definition of what profit is. And so your explanation over the years may have changed too. Usually it's whatever cash is left in the account. But some business owners, like sole proprietors, don't think of that. They think of their business more of as a bank and just pull the money left and out. So they don't ever stop to consider what profit is. But I'm curious, what's your definition of profit, and how do you do to track that now? How do you stay on top of it? Is there some daily things you do, or do you have a team member that does that for you, type of thing?
Yeah, we have a whole team of people that do that now, bookkeepers and accountants. I go over the financials once a week with my CEO and with the bookkeeper or the bookkeeper and the accountant. The profit, in my mind, when we're looking at profit, we're looking at, what is, first of all, let me say this, that everything that we do is designed to make a profit or to cost money on purpose. Okay. So it's to be like a lost leader on purpose. And then the profit might come a little bit later on. Like, it's very common that marketing does that. Marketing very often can cost more than it generates right there in the beginning, but on the back end is where the profit is actually made. Mm-hmm. So when we're looking at profit, there are several things that come into play based on what the vehicle would be, so to speak. So let me give you a for instance on this. So if I'm doing a seminar, there may be multiple steps to the seminar that actually cost us money up front. So it could be the initial advertising and marketing that goes out via internet and through other individuals that we're working with. That means that we have to pay people to create all of that, right? Mm-hmm. So there's no money coming in yet because that has to be created. So then once that goes out and people start signing up for something, then money starts coming in, but we're still behind because that's not where the big revenue comes in for that vehicle. The big revenue for that vehicle may not come in until we actually do the seminar, and then we actually make sales at the seminar itself. So now then after the seminar is done, once we take into consideration what all the cost of that was, right from the marketing and all the employees' time and everything, insurance and everything that goes with it, whatever is left over minus expenses would be considered profit. So that's profit for that event specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to look at quarterly profits, and you have to look at yearly profits, because then you have the overhead of the office and you have the overhead of everything together. So everything is designed with the idea in mind at the end of the year that we're going to be profitable as a company. That means that our income is going to be larger than our expenses for the year, and hopefully substantially so. And basically, in general, I've made more money every year for the last 17 years, and have never gone backwards. So I take a lot of pride in that, being able to do that. But it's not done by luck; it's done by design, and it's done with intention. And I think one of the reasons that I've been able to do that was that one of my first mentors that I worked with was very big on making sure that your company, that everything that you were doing within your company right from the get-go was making a profit. So he got me focused on those things very early on in my career, and they became a habitual practice so that I never got behind the 8 ball. And we're known, when people work with us, we're known for paying our bills early, not on time, not late, but actually paying them early. It's setting yourself to a higher standard financially. And the other thing is that it gives you more power over your finances. It gives you more peace of mind. We're not in doubt, worry, and fear about the money ever, because we're always doing things with that higher standard in mind, so that everything is actually profitable. Does that mean that everything that we've ever done is profitable? Absolutely not. We've had things that have completely, totally failed, but we also take that into consideration every year if we're trying something new. Plus there's also the idea that just because something worked maybe the last 3 years doesn't mean it's going to work this year. Right. And if it doesn't work this year, if we find out that it's not working, what are we going to do to shift, just and learn so that we can still be profitable at the end of the year? And a really good example of that was in 2008, 2009, when we had the financial crisis in the United States. And, it was all over, really. We were able to be profitable and then show other companies how to be profitable at the same time by adjusting what we were doing based on the economy and based on what they were doing with credit limits at the time.
Interesting. From behind the scenes curtains on your bank accounts, do you have set up savings accounts for growth or profit, or do you have it all in one bank account? I know that's a weird question to ask, but I'm just wondering about the intentional use of the money. Do you track it differently like that? So like you could have a growth account for investments for the next year, or a slush fund?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Multiple accounts, right?
Yeah.
So there's savings accounts, there's personal savings accounts and checking accounts, there's business saving accounts and checking accounts. Mm-hmm. And then there's allocated accounts inside of some of those accounts, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So that but there's stuff, there's like I have a wealth account, and mm-hmm. the wealth account is only for things that appreciate in value, right? It's never that the money that's in that account can be invested in anything I want to invest it in, or used for whatever I want to use it for, as long as it appreciates in value. It's never used for anything that depreciates.
Awesome. That's a great takeaway. I have found that shift, when you have more intentionality around how the money comes in and what its purpose is, the easiest way to do that is by creating some extra bank accounts and savings accounts that nowadays don't have to cost anything. They are free, but they're just an easy way to have intentionality around what that money's for. So when you go to spend it, it's on purpose, and money likes it. The energy of money likes to be in those types of things. They like to hang out with each other. So, so you already covered some investment. I'm wondering, do you have a board of directors, or do you have your own coach still? Do you have somebody that helps you get out of that unstuck space if you get there these days?
Oh yeah, absolutely, no question. I have a lot of different people that I can go to throughout the industry that I have made friends with, coached with, mentored with over the years. And no, I do not have a board of directors per se, but we do have kind of a pseudo board of people that we sit around and take a look at things with a couple of times a year that basically does the same thing. So, but as far as coaching and learning, absolutely, all the time. I am an avid student. So I have time set aside every day to study. I'm a voracious reader. I read I read several hundred books a year without even blinking an eye. And some of those are most of them are on audio these days, so that I can do it in between times, and I don't have to carry a book around with me everywhere I go. But I'm always seeking out and meeting people that are smarter and more knowledgeable than me in different areas that I want to grow, and then learning from them.
Okay. And is your team now, did you do planning with your team every year where they bring in ideas? Yeah. Where they're so instead of getting outside group advising from the outside in, it's really that your team is now advising from the inside out, that they're offering ideas and plans.
Yeah, well, it's actually both. So we bring in, when we are doing something where we're making a change or growing in an area, we will definitely bring in expertise from the outside to sit down with the whole team or the part of the team that needs to get that education or those ideas. And we do sit down as a team several times throughout the year. Plus we have operational meetings and organizational meetings and, stuff like that. Creative and planning meetings, sales meetings, we're always having a meeting about something that is productive for what it is that we're doing and where we're going.
I think that's the key thing. I know when I was first starting out, I was so much in the doing and didn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of or, even talk about the business when it's just you, when you're on the ship all by yourself. And so the first thing I did was get a coach so that I could have somebody to bounce some ideas off of. But then when I had my team, it's a different level to include them in the conversation and just get their point of view. It was very empowering for my growth. So thank you for that. Those takeaways.
You're welcome.
Let's talk about, to wrap up the call, what's your inspiration? The one thing I've learned is that the business initially was to get a paycheck, help pay what our family needed. But eventually it grows, it evolves into a business that supports us and supports the life that we want to create. So what does the business support you to do now?
Are you talking about from a financial perspective?
Well, the business is there to, what's it allow you to do now with your life? What does it allow you to do with what you want to, how you want to give back type of thing? Exactly.
So that's the one thing that the growth enables every year to happen. The reason that I got into this business was because I loved people. I hate to see people suffer. I realized a long time ago that ending suffering was really about awareness and about skill sets. And so that's one of the reasons that I got it. I just loved the information. When I started learning it myself, I became totally passionate about it. And my purpose is to help set as many people free as I can while I'm here in various different ways. So the business allows me to do that on a much grander scale today than it did, of course, in the beginning when it was just me. But we literally have pretty much a global brand at this point where we touch people all over the world. And we're always looking at expanding that and being more effective in that expansion. And then looking at hitting like micro markets around the world that need very specific things that maybe that they're untouched by education of this magnitude because of where they are, because of lack of income, those types of things. We love to participate in feeding people. I have been one of the charitable organization that I have been involved with for a long, long time is Make-A-Wish, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we've done a lot of things for the kids there. I got involved with that because my niece, going on, it's 21 years ago now, but my niece was born with biliary atresia, and she needed a liver transplant when she was born. So she got to stay, but they didn't have a lot of money then, and she was staying at the Ronald McDonald House, which really picked up. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to do it without the Ronald McDonald House. And when I would go visit at the Ronald McDonald House, Make-A-Wish would come in with a lot of those kids there, and also did something with my niece, and I became very passionate about the idea of giving those kids a level of hope that they wouldn't get otherwise. Kids with terminal illnesses are very difficult, lifelong illnesses or challenges. Have a lot of people around them often that just by the nature of the illness or the disease and the negativity that brings, it kind of steals their hope. And I think that one of the things that Make-A-Wish does is that it really instills hope in the kids and the family again. And it's so nice to be able to see a child who's been suffering really smile. I think that there's so much healing in that. So we're always looking for different things to partner with. A few years back, we did a whole book driving campaign for children in Africa when we were in Atlanta, and it was absolutely amazing to be able to just send tens of thousands of books to Africa for the kids that are learning there. So it just continues to enable me to give back wherever I go, and I'm a huge giver, whether it's just me walking down the street and seeing somebody in need, or a major foundation, or we just did something for homeless people here in the area. Basically, it's single moms through the police department in the city in which our business is in helping them give back to them. So it's a lot of fun, and it's really great to be able to spread that wealth and give back to people that are really in need.
Oh, wow. Thank you, David, for sharing that. It's important, I think, for us to give back, and so that we can even receive more, and how we can do it in different ways. There's, like you said, there's a way that you can do it through the business, through charity. There's just time with your team to give back. That was a lot of different options there, but it makes you feel so warm and fuzzy when you're able to give back, and your business is that vehicle to do that. And I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Wow.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
So many great takeaways. Let's see. Definitely, we had a lot on contracts. That's been something that's come up recently in the last year for me. So remembering to have an attorney to review and lead time, and also watching those partnership agreements. Even if you don't have an official contract, I have seen this in the past. A clear understanding what's going on with anyone that you partner with, but also being very clear on what the numbers are for. The one recommendation I have is that the money has to be paid out to the partners in guaranteed payments, and then they do with it on that side. So you might want a business manager or bookkeeper to come in and help oversee that, so that you're all on the same page. So that was a great takeaway. And of course, always mindset. Where is it? When to let go and when to fight, especially when you're talking about contracts, or somebody hasn't paid you, or even your team. And then, where's it? Where'd it go? Everything that goes wrong is a learning opportunity, and no victim mentality. Yeah. So that's the best thing.